Hi, so for today's craft, we're going to be making PJ shorts. And I thought of doing this because I made my, I guess, family. Well, I didn't make my husband one because I ran out of material. But I made my two kids and me, I guess, matching PJ shorts for Christmas. And I'm redoing it just because I didn't quite like how it came out. So for my other video, I used this pattern. And this worked perfectly for the kids. Like, I traced their patterns out and I made a small and a medium. And when I looked at the men's small, it was huge. So I made for myself the kids large. And it was okay, but it's a little bit long for what I like to wear to sleep. And also, I don't know, my fault, but I made the waistband way too big. So I have to fold it over, which I have to do anyways because it's so long. So I really wanted to make something more feminine, I guess, or like a woman's PJ short. And it didn't come with, this is like men's and boys. So yeah, the men's small was like really huge. I started to cut out the small and I was like, that's gonna be huge pants. So that's why I went with the kids large for myself. I mean, this is the boys medium and this is the men's small, so way bigger, right? So yeah, so I got the idea of maybe I'm just gonna recreate a pair using my regular favorite pair. It's simple enough and it doesn't have to be perfect since it's sleep shorts anyways. So I drafted my own pattern, and this is just a Victoria's Secret like boxer shorts in extra small. And they're in a flannel, so they're like really soft and like, I don't know, they're one of my favorite. And so I drafted up the pattern using a poster board from Walmart. It's 6 poster boards for about $6, so it's pretty cheap. Probably a better option. Like, I like to make my patterns out of poster board just because, I don't know, it's easy for me to store. They're like durable, they're gonna last. But like really thick gift wrap paper would be ideal. Butcher paper or art paper, you know, the ones that are on the easel that you roll out. I know my kids used to have a lot of that paper when they're little. But yeah, any kind of like large paper, right? Because you need it to be bigger than your pattern. So what I did was I got a poster board. I'm not going to redo it because it's pretty simple, and there's other videos if you really want to learn how to draft a pattern, because I'm definitely not a professional like seamstress, so I'm just like winging it here. But I went and got my poster board and I measured like half, so I wanted to do 1/2 inch seam allowances versus like 5/8. I don't know, I like it smaller. So I just got my pants, I folded it in half. Ideally, you want to like iron it, but I thought, nah, it's okay. And you're gonna wanna measure in 1/2 inch from the side and 1/2 inch from the bottom for your seam allowance. And also depending on your hem. Like, I just wanted to like zigzag it and fold it up and sew it. So that's why I'm only doing 1/2 inch for the hem. And then you're kind of just gonna stretch it out, and not too much, but enough to make it flat, and try to see how long the hem is. It also helps to measure, so you can go like along the hemline to where the crotch seam is, because it's going to be different for the front and the back. And this gives you about how long it should be. So this is about a 15¼ inch hem or hemline. So I'm just going to add an inch pretty much. I made it a little bit smaller. So this edge is 16 inches. And you're also going to want to measure from the top to the bottom, right on that seam. And that's 11½ inches. And that's how big it is from the bottom. So this part is very boxy, and I left it like that just because when I looked at the other patterns, they're also very boxy. So don't worry too much about this part. It's more about, I guess, the crotch line and the curve. So to get this curve, it's a lot of trial and error. You fold it at the seam. So once you have this part marked, you can fold it and then kind of just mark it. So if you can see my marking lines, I was using an erasable pen, but I marked it, and then you just add on 1/2 inch all the way around. And then for the top, this is a 1.5 inch elastic. I only had a 1 inch elastic. So yeah, 1.5. So I just added 1.5 inches of fabric on the top. And my plan is to fold it over 1/2 inch and then fold it over 1 inch and then sew the elastic together. So this is also different from my previous tutorial too, because I'm doing the elastic with the elastic sewn in, a 1 inch wide elastic, and have it sewn in. And that just prevents it from like twisting and, you know, bunching up in the casing. Like I really hate that, I don't know. So it's a little more complex in a way, but it's also easier for yourself later on when you're wearing it, I guess. Because if you look at this, I used a 1/2 inch elastic, and I made about a 3/4 inch casing, and it is like kind of twisted some spots. And then you gotta like, well, right here, you gotta like feel around, and you know, I don't want to bother with that. So I really like this kind of waistband better. So I did that for the back and the front. And the two things to really look for when you're making your own pattern is this part needs to match up. So this is about 3 inches. So when I was drafting it or drawing it, this one was smaller than this one, so I had to adjust it. So I just brought the curve up a little bit higher so that these 2 points match, and also the side seams need to match. Otherwise, you're gonna have a really difficult time. This crotch seam is not like that important. I mean, you want to have it like decently curved, but you can kind of see it's just, you know. And they also don't have to match because you're going to be sewing these 2 pieces together here, these 2 pieces together here, so it will match. So when you're cutting out your pattern, make sure you cut 2 of both. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I have my fabric, and this is just like a scrap fabric from one of my other projects. I think my car garbage can. And it's like just perfect enough, I think, to make one pair of shorts. Plus it's a really like smooth, soft kind of cotton, so I thought it'd be really comfortable. The back is always bigger, so I'm going to make sure I have this cut out. And the way that this extra piece is, I'm gonna have to do the back first and then cut out the front after. It's like it's just gonna perfectly fit. And the one also benefit of cutting it kind of square is that it fits right on the edge. So I'm not gonna pin it because I don't think it needs to be exact. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut. Okay, so I'm just gonna hold down my pattern, align, make sure it's aligned here and aligned here. You really should pin it if you want to be exact, or if you're gonna have a hard time.
It's the end of the year. Everywhere on TV, couples and Christmas.
Yeah, if you see what, it's just going to make it.
Just the worst time to be with someone special. In all the movies there, kissing in the snow.
Okay, so I have my pieces cut out. I also have a coordinating blue thread, but black would work just as fine. I just had this. And I also have a 1 inch elastic. Yeah, and these I just bought at Walmart. So we're gonna first pin together the material at the crotch. So right sides together. You can label the pieces if you want, but after this part, I don't think it'll matter too much. So You can pin it here. Okay, and then pin this side. And you can always tell which side's the back. It's the one with the longer curve. Also, after, if you have a serger, you can serge the ends. I don't, so I'm just going to open it up the seam and zigzag on both sides. Okay, so I sewed it and I zigzagged both sides. So now you're going to kind of finger press open the seam and do right sides together. And I'm just going to pin at the middle first. So matching the seams up and keeping the seams open, I'm going to pin it. And then we're just going to match up the curve. So I'll just add a couple of pins. Okay, so now I'm just going to sew down with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'm also going to double up the seam, meaning I'm going to sew one time around, and then from here to about here, I'm going to sew right on the same seam again. Maybe like slightly 1/8 of an inch inside, but really on the, I'm going to shoot for on the seam. And this just helps, you know, like when people say they split their pants, it's because the seam ripped over here for some reason. Say you bent down or whatever, and it ripped the seam here, then it'll like open up. But if you double seam it, it won't do that. So it's just an extra step. You don't have to do it, but I don't know. The instructions for the other one said to do it, so I'm just going to do it anyways. Okay, so I did that double seam from here to here. And now I'm just going to zigzag stitch both seams just together and go all the way around. And if you have like anything like uneven or something, you can trim it up. And yeah, I'm going to come back and do that. Okay, so I have my zigzag, and now I'm going to open it up. And then with right sides together, we're going to sew the side seams. So now it's really coming together and looking like pants, right? So this is the crotch area, this is the waistband, and we're just going to sew it. I won't even pin it because I mean, you can kind of tell. I'm just going to sew it 1/2 inch inseam, and I'm going to zigzag the seams. You can either choose to do open seams like this area, or you can choose to just do one. I'm just going to do one because I'm lazy. So, and really no one's going to care. So yeah, totally up to you though. You can also use pinking shears or your serger. Or you could leave it too. If you have a material like flannel that doesn't really fray that much, you could totally just leave it. But this is a cotton and it tends to like fray. So I'm going to zigzag it like this. Okay, so after you did the side seams, I'm going to zigzag the bottom hem. And then I'm going to, after I zigzag it, I'm going to fold it over 1/2 inch with the seams facing the back. It doesn't have to be the back if you don't care, but I like to just have all my seams going towards the back. So I'm going to zigzag it, then fold it up 1/2 inch and do like 3/8 of an inch stitch all the way around the edge. Okay, so the bottom hem is all done. So it's nice and neat. Now we're going to do the waistband. When I look at the middle seam, you just kind of have to like decide which way it's going to go. It doesn't really matter, but make sure it's following the same way all the way around. And this is the way we're going to press it. So I hate to have to like bring out the iron, but it does really help at this step. So now it's worth it to do it. So I'm just going to iron the seam down. And then we're going to fold it over 1.5 inches. So I have my sewing gauge right here. Just going to fold it down 1.5 inches. And also the side seams, you're going to want to decide which way. So you already decided at the hem. So all the hems are going to be facing back. Maybe I should, to make this clear, let's press it all one way. So I just have my Cricut Easy Press. I love this thing. It's so handy for sewing. Like, it's so tiny, you don't have to bust out the big iron, you know. Okay, so now we're gonna fold it over 1.5 inches and fold it up 1/2 inch. So you have about a 1 inch fold, or 1 inch, what do you call, section. I'm just gonna press that. You don't want it to be less than 1 inch because you're gonna put the elastic in like this. So you do want it to cover the elastic. So you can press it there. I'm gonna pin it just to keep it in place. And then we're gonna do it on this side. So I kind of was messy or sloppy when I cut it, so there's a little bit extra on the top. No worries, so we're gonna just use the shorter one for the measurements. So as long as you have that 1 inch, possibly a tiny bit over, you're good. And then once you get this section, you can kind of fold it over and then iron it in the middle. And it's really easy. Okay, so we have our casing all pressed. I measured the 1 inch elastic to my waistline, my comfortable waistline, and what we're gonna do is overlap it like 1 inch. And I'm just going to zigzag it, maybe 1 and 2, and then up and down 1 and 2, and come back. Okay, so I've secured my elastic, and now I'm going to mark it in 4 spots. So the middle of the zigzag, I'm going to just use my pen. You can use a Sharpie too. It won't show really, but I'm just using this pink friction pen, the erasable one. So this point, and then we're going to fold it over. So really just marking it in 4ths. So make sure you're starting with the back. If you want, you can put like a homemade tag. I'm just going to leave it, but you could put a little tag right there. So I'm going to pin this right underneath. And then it's gonna get a little bit bunchy, but it'll be worth it when you have an elastic band that does not move around. So I'm gonna pin this underneath the front middle seam. And then I'm gonna pin this one underneath the side seam. And the other side seam. So I know this is not like a super common way to do a waistband, but it is a lot more professional looking, I feel like, and a lot more comfortable. So I'm going to take you to the sewing machine and show you how I do this. Sorry, it's nighttime, so it's a little bit dark, but I'm going to have my sewing machine set to a little bit over to the left side. So it's going to be like a 1/4 inch away from this edge. And I'm going to do the biggest seam I can do. So it's about a 4. You could do a little bigger, but I like to do about 4. So I'm going to start with the back side where the elastic band is sewn. And we're going to kind of just do like a stretch. I'm not even sure what's called a stretch waistband. Okay, so I'm going to start from here. I'm aligning the edge with the edge of the presser foot. Okay, so the middle of this elastic, I'm going to kind of align it to the middle of the fabric, and I'm going to pull it while we sew. So put the needle down. That's why we had to like kind of press it so that it would stay nicely. And I'm just gonna do a couple stitches. Okay, so make sure the needle is in. That'll help you. And then you're just gonna, ideally you could pull all the way from the corner, but depending on how much control you have over it, I like to kind of do it in the middle just so I can get, I don't know, do it little by little, I guess. And make sure that the edge of the fabric, the folded edge that you ironed, is right at the edge of the elastic. And we're gonna sew. So stop before you sew your finger. Make sure the needle is down, and then you can pull it again and sew. So you're doing a long stitch so that when you pull it, there's a lot of give. So each quarter is kind of like their own little section. So I do the same thing for each quarter. I kind of get the middle of the loose fabric. I put it towards the middle of the elastic, and I hold it there, stretch it, and then sew. Just making sure it's nice and neat. It always helps if your needle is in when you're stretching it, because you know it won't move. You don't want it to move when you're, pulling it. And then when you get to the very end, just pull all the way and do your back stitch. Okay, so this is the finished product. The waistband looks so good, and it's not gonna twist or be uncomfortable. It looks really neat and professional, right? Just like regular pants. So this is like the one I bought, of course, and it's just, it doesn't twist or anything. It's very comfortable, and it's just the same thing. So you can flip it over. This is the front, and I get some troubleshooting when you make it. So this is my first template, or my first prototype, and it was a little wide, like wider than I wanted it to be. And I didn't wash it, so I have to like allow for some like shrinkage. But what happened was, so I made it a little bit wide. All I did was I cut off 1/4 inch from each side seam. And I think that made a big difference. So this one is less wide, and I think more how I want it. So same thing, I did the same waistband, same length and everything. It's just a little more trim, less poofy. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. I don't know if I'm gonna take a photo with this on, but yeah, when I tried it on, it was super comfortable, and I can't wait to wash and wear it. But yeah, so simple. Once you do it once and you have the pattern, you can make PJ pants like, I don't know, a billion times for yourself using all your cute scrap fabric or fun fabrics. So yeah, I hope you try it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.